Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Have you ever known me not to be?
No, I've always known you to be blissed. I have. It's great to hear your voice, Dr. Shealy.
Always great to be with you.
Class, thank you for being here today. We broadcast 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. And Brad is engineering the broadcast today. Thank you so much, Brad. You do a great job. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line, it's up 24/7, 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. 3249. And there's a link to all of your instructors on the website, usaprepares.com. USAPREPARES.com. Well, Dr. Shealy, what's new with you?
Oh, well, I'm getting impatient. I'm trying to dash from wanting to get our new scalar equipment. I talked with Lou last night, and it looks as if it'll be about 3 more weeks. Could be 4. But when we get that, we're going to go ape.
That is wonderful. Would you let me know? I'd love to swing by and take a look. And
I definitely want to check your blood. This is one where we're going to check the blood immediately. You don't have to wait for follow-up.
Okay.
We're going to look at it under the microscope, and then put the blood in the scalar room as well as away from the scalar room and compare differences, because using live blood analysis, which Chief Cloud Pilot is going to do for us, we can see immediate changes. Okay.
So, Dr. Shealy, is this something that we should consider doing a live broadcast while we're doing some of these?
Now, that would be fun.
Yeah. So,
we've done wilder things than that.
So keep that in mind. And let me know if you'd like to do that, so I can bring some equipment and we can do a live broadcast while we use the scalar room, test the blood before and after.
Can you turn on the video cam?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that Genesis Communications Network would like me to do is do video streaming while I'm on the air. And I've resisted. I've resisted because sometimes maybe there's some things that I wouldn't like our broadcast class to see me do while I'm on the air. Like sometimes I lose my temper and stomp around the studio, and when I read the news and pound my fist, I hit the mute button, pound my fist. So maybe that wouldn't be all that good if they saw it. So I'd rather not. And the other thing is, I really don't want any more of my images out there on the internet with facial recognition and so forth. So I've been pretty darn careful to prevent that as much as possible. So there are only a couple images of me. But those are my thoughts. So Dr. Shealy, let me share something that happened. It was no fun at all. I mean, literally, it was no fun. So we have some visitors here at the farm, and there are several of them, and they're in between 30 and 40 years old. They're 30s and 40s. They're visiting the farm and their family friends. And on the way in, one of them had a seizure in the car. I was not in the vehicle. One of the visitors was operating the vehicle, and so this person had a seizure, foaming at the mouth, ended up in the emergency room, and they didn't really do anything. They just watched and watched and watched, and I thought that the situation was cleared. And half a day later, the individual arrived at the house, and we're watching very, very carefully. That was one. Last night, another one, a different one, had a seizure right in the kitchen. Same thing. Eyes rolled back, collapsed on the floor. As soon as I heard this individual say something, I looked over as he went down, and on the floor, rolled him on his side, and kept him from swallowing his tongue. And then I found a soft barreled Sharpie marker, and I made sure it was closed, and I put that in his mouth to make sure he wouldn't keep biting his tongue. Blood was coming out, foaming at the mouth. Within a couple minutes, I'd say within maybe a minute or maybe two, he regained consciousness, and we're watching him very carefully as well, pushing fluids. So now the question is, what causes these things, and what do we do about them, and what kind of tests should we have, and how do we prevent them? Absolutely terrifying. It looked like two people were going to die, on the spot. What do we know about seizures, and what causes them? And now, both of these individuals have had seizures in the past. Each one had one seizure. The man who had a seizure had oxygen deprivation in his life during a surgery. The other one was in a car accident a couple years ago and hit her head against the side window. And so that's what we know. Other than that, very healthy.
Well, we don't know. Obviously, there are many, many, many causes. Something happens in a part of the brain which decreases the blood flow or the oxygenation or the electrical impulses so that people have a seizure. There are many, many, many causes. It can be both physical and chemical. And I know that one of the causes is deficient magnesium and deficient taurine. In many people who have frequent seizures, if you do a blood level of magnesium, you need to do an intracellular level. That's not a blood level. You scrape under the tongue like a pap smear of the tongue. And that's for the magnesium. And then for the taurine, you need a blood level. And in a majority of people who have their seizures poorly controlled, they're deficient in magnesium and taurine. So that's one thing to look at very carefully.
Okay. And what kind of a test is used for the taurine test?
That's a very simple blood test, just a blood serum. That can easily be done in any lab.
Would that be like a CBC?
No, it's not like a CBC.
Okay, blood serum test.
That's looking at the blood, the red blood cells or the white blood cells. This is actually looking in the serum. But it's a common enough test that any lab test could do it very easily.
Okay. So do we specify that we would like a serum test that would test for taurine?
Yes, I would strongly recommend that.
Okay.
Are these people fussy
now,
eaters?
Go ahead. Fussy eaters, both of them eat very well and eat very healthy.
I'm sorry, they eat healthy.
No.
Okay.
No, they're not. No, not that I can tell. I see meat, beef, chicken, vegetables,
real food.
Healthy eating, lots of greens. Yeah. But what I have seen is caffeine, and I'm concerned that maybe the caffeine level is high.
Well, obviously, any stimulant could trigger a seizure in someone who's prone to it.
So a stimulant could be caffeine.
You bet. It is it is the original stimulant.
Yeah. I just want to make sure our class understands 5 by 5 what I'm saying and what I'm asking. So, and here's what young people may think that, okay, so we'll avoid soda. We'll avoid Coke, Pepsi, Cherry Coke, Cherry Pepsi. We'll avoid Mountain Dew and, other carbonated beverages with caffeine. However, switching to tea has caffeine in it. Switching to coffee has caffeine in it.
Yes, coffee.
So
average is about 110 milligrams of caffeine per cup. Tea is about half that.
Okay. to use one. I'm writing some of these things down. To about 55 milligrams caffeine per cup. Okay. So here's what I did. I had some magnesium spray, and I used that because I thought that might be something we should try. Is that something that you would recommend we can continue, Dr. Shealy?
Oh, absolutely.
For these individuals.
But,
okay.
If it was someone I was seeing, I would want to get an absolute level of magnesium to prove that they need it. Of course, there's no harm in doing it. Can't possibly harm anything. And it's better, halitosis is better no breath at all. Doing it is better than not doing it, for sure.
Mm-hmm. What else would you recommend that these two people do in their daily routines? Here's my concern. One of them was, the one that happened in our kitchen, was just helping out cooking. Had a knife in his hand and he was, dicing up carrots. Pretty sharp knife, and went down. And it's a good thing that the knife went, in the direction it went. That's just a small problem. Getting behind the wheel of a vehicle, that's a big problem. And I'm wondering about all the other people who are behind the wheels of their vehicles. And is this an anomaly that happened, with two people that are on the way to our farm? Is this an anomaly, or is this happening more and more and more?
Well, that we don't know. I mean, epilepsy and rare epileptic seizures are not that uncommon. Actually, roughly 1 person in 100 will have seizures. Now,
1 in 100?
Yeah.
Wow, class, did you hear that? 1 in 100. I didn't realize it was that great of a number. That's huge. Dr. Shealy, medical doctor, PhD, brain surgeon, surgeon of the year, author, broadcaster, farmer, and my friend. We'll be right back right after these few short commercial announcements. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, so while we're on the commercial break, I used that time to convey the information to the individuals who had the seizures. And we're working on getting those blood tests done this morning. And Mrs. Finelli will take them to any lab test now to make sure that they get the blood serum test. So we're going to test for...
I would be happy to, at no charge, obviously, to give them a comment if they want me to review those blood tests.
Wonderful. We'll make sure that happens. And Dr. Shealy, thank you for... what do I say? Thank you for being Dr. Shealy. You're one of a kind. You're one of a kind. National treasure class.
Thank you. By the way, I looked up during that break, and the range of statistics is from 0.5% to 4% of people in the United States who will have epilepsy. So I would say my estimate of 1% is probably average pretty good.
Yeah, and I've got to tell you that when I was growing up, I heard of maybe one person who had epilepsy, who had seizures, and now it seems like I'm hearing more. And of course, I'm hearing more about cancer and all kinds of diseases, but it seems like we're getting sicker, 360 degrees around us, every way you can think of.
Well, I think that is largely from toxicity. I mean, the world has been poisoned for the last 100 years, especially by Monsanto and its clones.
And class, during the rest of this broadcast, I've got some questions for Dr. Shealy about specifically that. So please don't touch that dial, and we'll get to it. Dr. Shealy, continuing on seizures, is there something that we can do to prevent them?
Well, again, as with everything else, autogenic training calms the brain. Autogenic training, this 105-year-old technique, is a form, you could call it meditation, I call it retraining the nervous system. 18 minutes of practice of that every day for 3 months, and then 5 minutes a day for the rest of your life will lower the frequency of seizures by up to 80%, even in someone who's got them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and as you said this many times, and it just occurred to me just now as I was listening to you say it again. Is it possible that maybe some of this that we're experiencing is a result of this ridiculous pace that we have racing from here to there and back again, and the every 4, 5, or 6 minutes checking our cell phones to see if someone had some kind of a comment or someone wanted to tell us about their dog or their cat or
You always answer your own questions. Stress is stress is stress. I don't care how much you are addicted to it, how much you think it's necessary, how much you love doing it. Being alerted, even once an hour by a phone, and you've got to answer right now, to me is stress. And you couldn't pay me any amount of money to do that to my body or mind.
So, semi-dip experience here. I said to the individuals who had the seizures, we're not going to have cell phones near you. We're not going to do that. So I'm removing the cell phones. Do you know that those cell phones have? Yeah, well, they have magnetic properties, and they home right back.
Oh yeah.
These two individuals, I think, were suffering from withdrawal for a while for not having their cell phones. I took them away. I literally took the cell phones away and said, no, you're not going to have them. Not only that, you're going to have, I gave them Gatorade. I wanted to increase their electrolytes. We're grasping at straws here, trying to figure out how to get everything stabilized, before the doctor's office opens in the morning or any lab test now. But that was the plan last night, and we're going to do that. And your recommendation is spot on. I love it, Dr. Shealy. We'll be right back. Class Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and we're talking about seizures. And I mentioned during the first half of this broadcast that we have some visitors here at the farm, and we've had 2 seizures in 2 days, 2 different individuals. And so, if we're discussing this, we'd say, well, what's going on at the farm? Well, I got to tell you, one person wasn't even here, was on the way to the farm and had a seizure, and the other person was here helping out, cooking at in the kitchen, and had a seizure. And so that leads me to the next topic, which is an article I was reading about Boston University. They're doing the biggest ever study with NFL, National Football League players, and what's called a CTE. And a CTE is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. CTE, it's a little understood condition. It's a progressive neurodegeneration situation that's associated with repetitive head trauma. Now, who would be involved in lots of head trauma? Well, that'd be, football players. They're banging into each other all the time. And what this is saying is that they've studied the brains of a number of these individuals who have died. And they say that over time, these hard impacts result in, damage to the brain, confusion, depression, eventually dementia. And there have been a number of retired football players who have come forward with brain diseases. And they themselves are attributing their condition to playing football and the hits that they took in the heads, in their heads. And so it's just recently that these football players have come out and said, this is what's happening to us. We're having trouble. And it's related to being hit. And if you look at Muhammad Ali or Cassius Clay, as we used to know him, he'd been hit so many times he can hardly string a sentence together. And
I consider
Dr. Shealy,
boxing and football to be barbarian, and that is being kind sports. Under no circumstance would I allow, if it's a child of mine, football or boxing.
And is it because of these repetitive injuries that could happen to the brain? getting hit in the stomach and the legs and the chest and the back. Those are plenty bad enough.
Interestingly, my father was a great football fan, but he would not allow me to play football because he didn't want me to damage my brain. I mean, my father, who had no scientific training at all, just a common, businessman, knew that football was bad for your brain, and he would not let me play football.
Yeah. So, what, Dr. Shealy, what do we tell the parents of these high school children who just love to see their young family running around and getting banged up in karate? I mean, we had our children go to karate and they wore the headgear, but if you were under 18, there was a rule you could not hit to the head, which was great. And they had chest protection, they had headgear, and they had padded gloves on, and foot padding. But still, those young people got banged up a little bit. What do we tell these parents to wake them up? That, are you kidding? Are you serious about football?
Do you really like your kids? I mean, are you trying to torture them? You want to damage them? You are responsible until they're at least 18 years of age. You are legally responsible for them. And your responsibility is to keep them from getting hurt.
According to this article that I'm reading on the dailymail.co.uk, it says that, let's see, they analyzed 177 brains of these football players, and 87% had CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy.
Wow.
87%. And it says college players had the second highest rate, 48 out of 53 college players. That's
they've been at it.
An enormous percentage.
Yeah.
And even high school football players have CTE. So what Dr. Shealy is saying, class, is absolutely true, according to this article, that these brain injuries are pretty serious, and it sounds like there's no coming back from them, Dr. Shealy. When you're really banged up repetitively over and over and over and over again, as you would be playing football or boxing, there's no coming back from it. You just can't regain those cells that have been damaged, right?
You're right. I mean, we have no way of repairing that degree of damage. Now, interestingly, second in seriousness is the cervical spine. I saw an 18-year-old who had a neck injury from football, and he had loosened, if you will, the ligaments in the middle of his cervical spine, and so that there was excess movement when he bent his head backwards and forwards. And my immediate recommendation was he should never go near a football game. His parents were angry with me. Don't you like your son?
Yeah. And what are these parents thinking? Do you get to replace your children? Do you get to hit the reset button? Say, you know what? That wasn't such a good idea. Let me hit the reset. Let's start this game over again.
You
That's
really
not something...
can't fix stupid. I mean, that's the way I look at it. You just can't fix stupid.
I agree. So, there even automobile racing, the Formula race cars, they literally chain the helmet, the back of the helmet, to the seat, so that the head of the driver doesn't lurch forward and snap the neck of the driver should there be a crash. I mean, they literally restrict the movement of the head, and so that even the race car drivers are subject to intense pounding of the brain. I'm not up for it. I'm really not up for it. If I had children of high school or elementary school age, I would not let them play football. I really wouldn't. because of the seriousness of this. And I don't know why parents aren't paying attention, but let's wake some up. So grandparents, if you're in class today, I think it's incumbent upon you to make sure that your children know about this so they can make sure that their children don't get brain damaged as a result of playing a game. And when you think about this, when you think about how important is that game in the scheme of things, in the scheme of life, how important is that single game or that season of playing football, how important is that in a person's life? It really is it's insignificant. Insignificant because, there are those who think that they're going to go on to become a major league player. How often does that happen? Not too often, right? So what's the likelihood of that? So why risk it? Why risk it for that small of an opportunity to become a major ball player? There you go. Okay. So the next question, Dr. Shealy, since we're talking about being healthy, is it possible? Is it possible to be healthy and eat gluten? Can you eat gluten and be healthy?
Well,
in the long run. In the long run,
I think it's pretty unlikely. And the reason is not the gluten. The reason is, although there are certain people where that would be true, but the main reason is Roundup. Roundup is the one of, and probably the top, chemical poison in the world today.
Yeah, and is brought to us by former Governor Blunt of Missouri. He's taken payments from Monsanto, and he's like he's a criminal. The guy who's,
in my opinion, he should be brought before a court. Criminal behavior. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't vote for him. And I wouldn't vote for Claire McCaskill either, by the way. But both of them are horrible, absolutely unacceptable people.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So here we have people who have taken money from corporations, and they have unleashed Roundup, glyphosate, on us. And let me tell you how bad glyphosate is. So here's an article in the NewYorkTimes.com, and it says, traces of controversial herbicide are found in Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So now those people who want to buy Ben & Jerry's are willing to pay extra because they have this belief that Ben & Jerry's is better for them than other brands of ice cream. Well, here's what the article says. A growing number of foods commonly found in kitchens across America have been tested positive for glyphosate. That's Roundup, the herbicide that's the main ingredient in the popular consumer pesticide Roundup, which is widely used in agriculture. Well, just as an aside from Finelli, Roundup is used by people who live in neighborhoods because they just want to get rid of those pesky weeds, and they spray them on the weeds as well. So Roundup is not used just by agriculture. It's used by homeowners. Okay? It goes on to say, but few brands on their list are startling as the latest. Ben & Jerry's, the Vermont ice cream company known for its family-friendly image and environmental advocacy. So what we're saying, class, is Ben & Jerry's ice cream, the one that you would think would be really good, that you pay extra for, some of it has tested positively for having Roundup in it. Now, did Ben & Jerry's add it? No. Well, I don't believe they did. I believe it came from their suppliers who have had Roundup in the ingredients that have been used in their ice cream, like the milk. There you go. We're right back. So I went to a search engine. I typed in Roundup space rain, and I wanted to know what search results we'd get. And it led me to an article from CBSNews.com. CBS, this is mainstream. CBSNews.com, and the article's dated March 16th, 2017. Headline, lawsuit accuses Monsanto of manipulating research to hide Roundup dangers. Let me just read a little bit to you, Dr. Shealy, and I'd love to have your comment. Yolanda Mendoza makes the most of her time spent with her children after battling stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for more than a year. I have nerve damage. I don't feel the tips of my fingers, my jaw. It's still, I can't feel it. That's her quote. Mendoza blames glyphosate, the main chemical ingredient in the weed killer Roundup, which she used on her lawn every weekend. I had a backpack that held 2 gallons of water, and I'd strap it on, and I would walk around spraying. Mendoza is one of hundreds of people around the county suing Monsanto, Roundup's parent company. Their lawyers cite a 2015 World Health Organization study that says glyphosate is probably carcinogenic and damages DNA in human cells. The data they look at, they cherry pick, says Dr. Donna Farmer, a Monsanto scientist who spoke with CBS News last summer. There is no data indicating that we should change any recommendations on how this product should be used. Glyphosate, the data is clear, doesn't cause cancer. That does not cause cancer, Dr. Farmer said. But now the data is in question. Newly released court documents in a federal lawsuit suggest Monsanto planned to ghostwrite a positive report on glyphosate and get experts to back it up. A scientist wrote in an email, we would be keeping the cost down by us doing the writing, and they would just edit and sign their names. What we're talking about is Monsanto writing articles and getting people with degrees to maybe edit them and sign their names as if they wrote them, saying that allegedly, it sounds like they're saying that Monsanto wants to put the best positive face on this toxic problem they have caused across the planet. Dr. Shealy, your comments on this?
Well, I wouldn't trust Monsanto to tell me the time of day. I think they are as crooked as you can get in any business in the world. The mafia would be proud of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And all it took was buying a few greedy government alleged representatives, right? That's all it takes is get a few of them in line and then unleash this toxin across the planet. And all over the world, there are farmers who have fell prey to these toxins and have applied them. And we don't use them here. But I can tell you, I have seen with my own eyes actually two 330-gallon totes, these very large cubicle containers that contained glyphosate at one time. So for certain, because they were empty, they had just a little bit of residual Roundup left in these totes. So for certain, 300 gallons times 2 was used somewhere, because I saw the empty containers. And that's just the tip of the iceberg about how much Roundup is being used. And this poor woman thought she was just making her yard beautiful in Los Angeles. She put a backpack on, she sprayed it. Obviously, she was inhaling it. Obviously. And I had a friend who just died. And that's what he did around his farm. He would spray the weeds. If you come look at our farm, we have plenty of weeds. Why? Because we don't use Roundup. And we're not going to. Dr. Shealy and I will be right back after these few short commercial announcements. And I'd like to ask him, what does he put in his salad? What are his favorite fruits? And just to let him know that, yep, he's absolutely right. Sperm count is down. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, I just heard top of the hour news, about this company, and I've read the article a couple days ago about how this Wisconsin company is offering for free to implant chips in its employees who volunteered, and they want to implant them between the thumb and the forefinger. And it's no big deal. It's just so simple and so quick, and they can implant this RFID type grain of rice size chip inside their hand, And at the top of the hour news, we heard this guy say, sometimes he forgets his password on his computer, and wouldn't it be nice if he doesn't have to remember his password, and maybe he can use it to fly as his boarding pass, and he can do banking with it. And isn't this just wonderful? Well, here's what I've learned. So I did a little bit of research, and I read this article, before the news report came out. And so this Wisconsin company's offering. This is NPR.org, the article. Wisconsin companies offering to implant tiny radio frequency chips in its employees. And it says they're lining up for the technology. The idea is a controversial one, and it's an ethical issue. Okay, 3 Square Market is the company, and they're the first to provide the technology to their employees. And they say it's this device that lets them have this rice grain size RFID chip implanted between their thumb and forefinger, and they can make purchases in the break room. Isn't that wonderful? They can open doors, they can log into the computer, and they can use the copy machine. This is like really, really wonderful, right? So these employees who have lost their minds are willing to do this. Dr. Shealy, do you have any medical thoughts about? Is there an issue that
it's called insanity?
Okay.
On the other hand,
no disagreement.
Disagreement. And interestingly, they're implanting it in the single strongest acupuncture point in the entire human body. Hoku, or large intestine 4. That's that point between the thumb and the index finger, and right there is Hoku, which is it is stronger than all other acupuncture points. Now, what that suggests to me is these people are likely to have some serious GI problems if they don't get brain problems first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I asked you if there's a medical concern because of that Hoku point. And there you have it. And that is the very point where if I apply Air Bliss, I mean, within seconds, I am grinning from ear to ear. And that's what I do before the broadcast. And I'm telling you, class, it absolutely positively works. So putting an electronic device there is insanity to me. And here's how these things work. These RFID chips sit there and they don't do anything until they're excited by electrons near them. So if there's a reader that transmits and reads the RFID chip. So when you get near it, when you get near this reader, it will excite the RFID chip and it will transmit. Now, can they be cloned? Yes, they can. There's an article that I was reading during the break, and it says the RFID hacking underground. And this guy developed he developed a device. He built a coil, a transmitting and receiving coil. He powers it. He hides it on his person. You can't see it. He gets near a person with an RFID chip or gets near an RFID chip on a product that you can purchase. There are products that have these chips in them now. And or doors that have RFID readers, he can get near there and he can get next to a person that has one of these RFID type badges, and he can clone it from a distance, not far. I mean, a few feet away. He can clone it, he can read it, and then he can create the signal that the RFID chip creates when it gets excited. So, can they be hacked? Sure, absolutely. So when you go to the bank and you give them your hand to pay for something, can that be cloned? Yes. Can it be cloned when you go to the restaurant? Yes. Can it be cloned when you go to the airport? Yes. So, how good are these things? I don't think they're all that great.
Good.
That's besides.
Good. On a scale of 0 to 100, they're way below 0.
Right. So how good are they? I'm not interested in them at all. It's right up there with tattoos, Dr. Shealy. I've told our children that if any of them gets a tattoo, they're out of the will. And so now I need to add another page. And if you get an RFID chip, you're out of the will. pretty soon, I guess there's going to be multiple pages in the rules. But really, parents, think about this. Do you want to have your children chipped? Do you really? Do you want to have your animals chipped? We're not doing it. We don't have our dogs chipped. Really? Why would we do that? Why would we do that? You know, if we want people to know where home is for our animals, we'll put a collar on them, and we'll put, "If found, please return to," with our address and our phone number. Simple as that. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do. As a matter of fact, when we had our expo, we talked to this guy who makes dog collars. And what he does is he puts a little badge on the dog collar in brass, he engraves it, and it would say Vincent Finelli, the address of the farm, and the phone number. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? As simple as that. No electronics required.
By the way, I just sent you a photograph of a hand with an implanted chip. It's much bigger than I expected, even.
Yeah, it's they make it seem like it's no big deal. You know, class, when you get your blood drawn, you know, I always say, you have a smaller needle. Well, this needle, it looks like it is the diameter, actually larger than the lead of a number 2 pencil. So if you think this isn't going to hurt, we don't even use needles that large on our cows because we don't want to hurt them. This is a huge needle. It really is. And I'm not interested in having someone stick that in me. I'm not. And I feel very strongly about this. So after the broadcast, I'm going to call up our children and say, and by the way, I just want to let you know there's an addendum to the no tattoo thing. Dr. Shealy, just let's digress to the tattoos. Medically speaking, aside from it being unsightly, ugly, disfiguring the human body, aside from all that, aside from if you've got a toned body when you're young, and as you get older, you might sag a little bit, and that tattoo's going to sag with you. Aside from all that, is there a medical concern that you have about the ink of the tattoo, or the person who is tattooing you, or the cleanliness, the hygiene, the sterility of the tattoo needles and equipment, and or being used on other people before you? Any of that? Is there a medical concern that you have about tattoos?
All of the above. Now, literally, actually, sterility is the thing I would worry most about. But from my point of view, it is truly desecration. I mean, I consider the human body to be part of divinity. Anything created by God is part of divinity. And so it is actually destroying a sacred object, the body. I think it's it's just unacceptable. What else can you say?
Class, you know, we raise Black Angus cows. I don't even like putting ear tags in their ears so I can tell one from the next from the next. And it's difficult, you know, when you have over 100 cows to figure out who's who, and to figure out who's given birth to who, and who the calves are from which mamas, and so forth. So, you know, we need to do that. If it wasn't for that, I would not want to put ear tags in our cows, and we only put one in. You know, lots of farmers will put multiple ear tags, you know, both ears, multiple tags. We don't do that. We try to have the absolute minimum, what would you call it, insults to our cattle. And, just poking that ear tag through the ear is something that's probably a little bit painful, and we don't like doing that. But we have to in order to figure out who's who. Dr. Shealy, I like to eat salad. I really do. And this is the time when the tomatoes are starting to come in season. I love eating tomatoes, and I wash them, and I'll put some balsamic vinegar and extra virgin olive oil on them, and a little bit of Himalayan salt, a little bit of pepper, some fresh basil out of the garden. I'll cut that up, and that'll be a meal. What do you like? What does Dr. Shealy like to have as ingredients in his salad, based on based on everything, based on taste, based on nutrition, based on everything you can think of. What do you do when you make a salad, Dr. Shealy?
Well, I love balsamic vinegar and olive oil. And there's so many different varieties of balsamic vinegar. I mean, it's wonderful stuff. But every once in a while, I like ranch dressing, buttermilk ranch dressing. And so I will buy a bottle at the grocery store. But I would say 75% of the time I use vinegar and olive oil.
And I remember being at my grandmother's house on my mom's side, and it was always the same thing. It was red wine vinegar and olive oil and a little bit of salt, and that was it. That's what went on the greens and the tomatoes that came out of the garden. That was salad. It was tossed, and then it was refrigerated for a short time. It was fabulous, but not balsamic vinegar. So in Great Britain, they're thinking about reducing some pollution. And they're thinking about doing it by banning some vehicles. Not all vehicles, just the ones you drive. Like, if you drive a gasoline-powered vehicle, which just about everybody does, or if you drive a diesel vehicle, which a few of us do, Great Britain wants to ban them in 2040. That's 23 years from now. So they want to ban them because they feel that they are polluters. And they have some of the dirtiest roads on the planet there, and they're going to do something about it, and that is to ban the internal combustion engine. And Volvo has determined that they're going to stop making internal combustion engines, and they're only going to make electric vehicles. I just want to let you know, class, that there is no such thing that I know of at this point that is viable, that is in production right now, that will generate some kind of energy that is not polluting. And if you look at electricity, at the point of use, meaning at the outlet in your house, it doesn't pollute. Okay, it doesn't. However, getting it to your house, there are losses. There are friction losses or resistive losses in the transmission lines. And then there are losses in the generation of power. Now, one power type generation, which is hydro, does not pollute very much. Okay? It causes problems where the dams are. It pollutes in the construction of the equipment, the insulation, the plastics, and the metals, and the mining, and so forth. There's pollution involved there, but not in the generation of power. Nuclear, yeah, that pollutes. That pollutes by creating toxic waste that we don't know what to do with forever. And then gas, natural gas, that still pollutes the air. Oil, that pollutes the air. Coal, that pollutes the air. So even though at the point of use it appears that electricity is clean, unless it's hydro, I don't know of a clean way of generating electricity without pollution. So in England, Great Britain, they want to ban the internal combustion engine. Okay, fine. Well, what about the trucks? What about the trucks that bring the food to the supermarkets? What about the trucks that are involved in the supply chain of everything? What about the jets that fly the jet set around? What about the jets that fly these alleged representatives all over the country with their entourage? What about that? What about the convoys of vehicles that escort the alleged representatives from point A to point B? What about the wars that these alleged representatives cause all over the planet that pollute the planet? So I just wanted to share that with Dr. Shealy, that's what Great Britain is thinking about doing, ending the almost 150-year reign of the internal combustion engine. And we'll not stop there, okay? Because if you have a rototiller, that's an internal combustion engine. If you have a weed whacker, it's probably an internal combustion engine. There are some electrically powered ones. Lawnmowers, yeah. So chainsaws. There are a lot of gasoline-powered devices that are polluting as well. So it's a big problem. I'm not saying I have the answer. I'm just saying it's a big problem. Dr. Shealy, your thoughts on that?
Well, I think at this point it's crazy. But other than that, what's new in government? I haven't seen government do anything that I could consider great. Period.
Yeah. Well, actually, they take holidays. And it's really nice when they go and take a holiday.
They cost us quite a bit more money because they pay themselves for all kinds of expensive ways of doing it.
Yeah, and they've exempted themselves from the rules and regulations that they foist on us. Dr. Shealy, there is a concern about indoor pollution. Of course, there's outdoor pollution.
Oh, yes.
And then there's indoor pollution. And I was reading an article, we'll talk more about it. It says the air in our home is ruining our lungs. And what's causing it? Well, those of us with gas stoves, those of us who use spray cleaning products. What's it doing? It's causing more asthma. We're back with Dr. Norman Shealy. And, we were talking about pollution, indoor air pollution. It's causing lung problems to lots of us. And what's being blamed? Well, our lifestyle. And this article on the dailymail.co.uk talks about, well, forget outdoor pollution. It's in the air in your home that's ruining your lungs. Study warns gas cookers, that'd be like gas stoves, and cleaning products are driving an asthma epidemic in the U.S. and the UK. It says outdoor air pollution causes 200,000 early deaths in the U.S. and 40,000 in the UK. But experts warn indoor air quality is also a danger as we spend more time inside. So what are the risks? Well, mites trigger asthma. Mold infects our lungs. Gas appliances with nitrogen dioxide causes problems. And cleaning products. And what are they? We spray them. We have these wipes that you open the canister and you use them. And if you've tried the product called Fantastic or 409 and you inhale that, wow, you know that's doing damage to your body when you breathe those products. So, Dr. Shealy, this is an article that talks about the molds, the fungal spores, the dust mites, which can trigger asthma attacks, breathing difficulties, and it's associated with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, indoor air pollution, something that we need to consider eliminating. And it's easy. It's easy to eliminate, except for the mold, the black mold. Other than that, just stop using some of these products. Open the windows, right? What are your thoughts?
Well, obviously, artificial, this, that, and the other, synthetic fibers are also a major contributor. Formaldehyde, for instance, out of certain kinds of carpet. We don't have any such in our house, so that's never a problem. I don't know how to get away from the use of bleach. I think it is, occasionally essential for sterilizing something, but I don't think you should spray it. One thing that probably is safer than bleach itself is Nixol. It seems to be very safe, even on the skin. But I think the most important thing is to avoid artificial. I think artificial fabrics, artificial stuff is number one. Now, if you live in a city, anywhere, even Springfield, there's no such thing as fresh air. The air itself is already highly more chemically polluted than anywhere else. I guess halitosis is better than no breath at all. Any air is better than none. But I definitely don't like it.
Dr. Shealy, in our house, for the last 12 years at the farmhouse, I've had running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, an ion generator. And what this thing does is it emits ions into the air which cling onto airborne dust particles, and it causes them to fall down. And they fall down on everything. They fall down the furniture, the carpet, the floor, and then we have a vacuum cleaner that we vacuum them up. But it's not just any vacuum cleaner. What we've done is I think that vacuum cleaners redistribute dust around the houses that they're operated in, because typically a vacuum cleaner has a bag and it traps some particles and some dust, but some of it gets right through the bag. So what we did was I plumbed into our house a central vacuum system, and while we were building it, I ran the plumbing and I actually hooked up initially a shop vacuum cleaner to it in the garage, and we would turn that on in the garage, and then we'd use the hose in the house and it'd put the dust in the garage, which the garage door would be open. But then eventually I was able to find a central vacuum system, and I then send the dust that gets through the filter system outside. So we don't redistribute the dust in the house. We pick it up with a 35-foot long vacuum hose and then send into the garage, and then what doesn't get picked up by the canister gets sent outside. So that is our approach to minimizing the amount of dust in the house. But we live in the middle of nowhere, as you do. Have you experimented with these ion generators to cause the dust to fall down rather than be lingering in the air for a longer amount of time?
Yes, I have explored those over the years. Do not use one continuously. I think partly that's because 8 months of the year we have open windows, living on a farm with no chemical pollution. But I actually like the smell of ozone. To me, it's one of the. It's not like a perfume. It's just an energizing smell.
It smells like fresh air. It smells like the air after a rain.
Exactly.
That's what it smells like. So if you're wondering what the smell of this ion generator is like, but there are some negatives to it. So, for example, if we don't stay on top of removing the dust from the floors or any flat surface, you could write your name in the top of our refrigerator. I mean, because it only takes one day. It's quite effective. So you may want to look into an ion generator. And this thing, what does it look like? It looks like a cylinder. It looks like a round cylinder, maybe 12 inches tall, and it has a diagonally sloped top to it. It's black. It's silent. There's no fan, and it has a fuzzy top where the ions are emitted, and it's like a steel wool, except it's made out of brass or copper. And so that's what it is. It's silent. It uses very little electricity, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 watts, and there are no moving parts. It just sits there, generates the ions, and they cause the dust to fall. Dr. Shealy, I wanted to talk about something that you've mentioned many, 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 many times. And of course, now it's making even more mainstream news. This time it's the BBC.com, and they're saying sperm count drop could make humans extinct. They're saying that they did an assessment, and they studied between 1973 and 2011, and they're finding that the sperm count is way, way, way down. 52.4% decline in sperm concentration and a 59.3% decline in total sperm count in men from North America, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. And they're saying that eventually we may have a problem with reproduction in general, and it may be the extinction of the human species. That's how serious this is. And you've been talking about this for years. You've been talking about the decline in sperm count.
Yeah, well, over 25 years ago, I did a study on men with low sperm counts. There is an acupuncture circuit in the body called the Chongmo, Tchongmo. And treating men, I think we had 8 men that we treated with Chung-Mo stimulation, and all of them had a significant increase in sperm count. So it can be reversed with one of these age-old, centuries, millennia-old approaches of using acupuncture. On the other hand, I've been talking about this for almost 40 years because we have known the sperm count has been decreasing throughout the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And is this toxicity? Is it lifestyle? Is it stress? Is it all the above?
I think it's all of the above, but it's mostly, again, poison. Mm-hmm. Among other things, guess what would help poison it? My least favorite product in the world.
Glyphosate.
Yeah, but that's just one of thousands of chemical pollutants.
How about sugar? Is that, do you think, just...
Well, sugar would be a contributor.
That's what I mean.
But it's the amount of it and the wide variety of foods in which it's been placed artificially that is a real problem. Remember, table sugar is not a food. It is a chemical. It's like going to the chem lab. There is no natural source where you would eat or get out of the food pure, unadulterated table sugar.
And what I was thinking is that sugar would be in lieu of eating something that has nutrition. It would be displacing.
Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be displacing vitamins and minerals because just from sheer content. And I forget the amount of sugar that we eat, but it's a small mountain per person. It's alarming when you add up all the sugar that's in all the products that we eat over a year's time. It's staggering the number of pounds of sugar that we eat. Staggering. I don't have it at the tip of my tongue as to how much, but it's a lot. I was reading an article about men who have not been circumcised, and it says that bacteria under the foreskin raises men's risk of HIV by up to 63% because it acts as a virus gateway to the body. We talk about that when we come back, Dr. Shealy. Class, Dr. Shealy's with us, and if you'd like to get the same newsletter that I get, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, what's the best way to set up an appointment if we'd like to come see you in Springfield, Missouri?
Well, 417-351-5221.
Class, 417-351-5221. 417-351-5221. So, Dr. Shealy, there's this article I was reading about bacteria on under the foreskin of men, and it could cause a problem. So it needs to be kept clean. Your thoughts about?
This was known when I was in medical school, Vince. Of course, we didn't have HIV then, but it was known that uncircumcised men had a higher incidence, for instance, of cancer of the penis and all venereal diseases. And so, some people bitch and moan and complain about circumcision, but from a health point of view, it is one of the simplest, safest, and I properly done, I know no downside to it.
How about later in life? How about someone who's 30, 40, 50?
Doing it at that age, at any age. I mean, actually, I was not circumcised until I was 19. Mm-hmm. And when I was in medical school, I chose to have it done based upon adequate information.
Okay. Dr. Shealy, what you mentioned taurine during hour number 1 as a deficiency that might be involved in seizures. What is the recommended amount of taurine as a supplement that our class should consider?
Well, if someone has seizures, I would give 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. And we use up to twice that much for treating hypertension.
Okay, 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day of taurine. And is it just taurine that is packaged, or is it typically packaged with something else?
Well, chlorine comes in its own capsule, yes.
Okay, all right. That was my question. 1,000 milligrams or 1 gram 3 times a day with food, without food?
I don't know that it matters.
Okay.
It's one of those things. I think it's absorbed pretty well whether you take it with or without food.
Okay. Dr. Shealy, I was given a shaving mug rack, and I was thinking about putting it in the studio. And this was from the Great Depression era. It came from a barber shop, and where barbers would allow their customers to bring in their own shaving mugs and their own shaving soap and their own shaving brushes. And where I'm going with this is, so the customers would say, don't use, the previous guy's soap on my face. Don't use his shaving brush on my face. So the barber would have a rack with each of the customers' shaving mugs with their soap. And when they came in for their daily shaves, or every couple of days for a shave, the barber would use the brush and the soap and the mug from each individual customer. However, each individual customer did not have his own razor. So while they were being shaved with the...
Okay.
So my question is, when we go to the barbers, and if we do get a shave, do we need to be concerned about hygiene and sterility of the razors?
Yes. I've never been shaved in a barbershop and never plan on it.
I agree. I don't plan on it either. However, I do know that barbers do that. And I do know that barbers did that. And I have seen the razors and the leather straps, and I've seen all the equipment. And my concern is, who doesn't get nicked? Well, I know that a lot of people get nicked by barbers, and they bleed. And what is the concern about getting some disease from that razor? And is there a concern, Dr. Shealy?
I have to say, I even hope that they do something to sterilize the electric razors that they use on your hair.
Yeah, but they don't.
I'm not going there.
So, Glass, you might want to think about where you get your haircut. You might want to go to a place where you see them use sterilizing solutions on the combs and so forth. That's just the beginning. Dr. Shealy, thanks so much for being with us.
Have a good one.
You too. We'll see you next Wednesday. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.